Good morning. As we can all see that a formal guard of honor is being accorded to our chief guest of the day, and anytime soon she'll be here amongst us. May I remind all of you to kindly switch off your mobile phones? You may put them on silent mode. Thank you so much. I would request you all once again to please switch off your mobile phones. A very good morning. On behalf of APJ Satya and Swaran Group, Indian Obscene Gynae Journal, and Walter Bushnell Healthcare Foundation, a center of excellence of the APJ Satya University, I extend a very warm welcome to all our distinguished guests at the IOG Dr. Satyapal Awards 2017. We are indeed honored to have amongst us a galaxy of esteemed doctors and other dignitaries from across the country and abroad, along with the members of the APJ family. I'd like to inform you all that the entire proceedings of today's oration lecture and awards is being broadcast live on our site iog.org.in/live. In fact, many of our well-wishers, both from India and abroad, have already logged in, and we welcome them as well. It's a great privilege to extend a warm welcome to our chief guest, Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, Professor, Epidemiology and Population and Family Health at the New York Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia University Medical Center. Hope you liked our traditional Indian welcome. I would also like to extend a special welcome to Mrs. Sushma Paul Berlia, co-promoter and president, APJ Satya and Swaran Group, and Dr. J.B. Sharma, editor-in-chief, IOG Journal, for gracing the event with their kind presence. We also would like to welcome Mr. Nishant Berlia and Neha Berlia. Welcome. Members of Management Board, APJ Satya and Swaran Group, are also present here with us this morning. The IOG Dr. Satyapal Awards and Oration Lecture has been instituted, as we all know, in the memory of Dr. Satyapal, an eminent industrialist, educationist, philanthropist, and freedom fighter. The awards to be presented today would acknowledge excellence among members of our medical fraternity who have contributed papers to the reputed Indian Obs and Gynae Journal. I once again welcome all of you to IOG Dr. Satyapal Awards 2017. Let us now light the auspicious lamp to inaugurate today's function, and to do the honors, may I request Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia, Mr. Nishant Barlia, Ms. Neha Barlia, and Dr. J.B. Sharma to light the ceremonial lamp. So these were the students of APJ school who paid obeisance to Lord Ganesha, the remover of all obstacles. May these lights dispel the darkness and ignorance and illuminate our lives. With this hope, we move forward. And I now request Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia, and Mr. Nishant Barlia, along with Dr. J.B. Sharma, to kindly be seated on the dais. Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia, and Dr. J.B. Sharma. I request Madam Sushma Paul Barlia to kindly do the Deep Prajwalan. Nature is said to be the mother of all life on earth. Today, we'd like to pay obeisance to her benevolence by presenting green certificates to our esteemed dignitaries present on the dais. These green certificates symbolize the green saplings to be planted across the APJ campus in honor of each of our dignitaries. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Stya Paul, an eminent industrialist, educationist, freedom fighter, and philanthropist, was a leader par excellence and a legend of our times. He was one of the principal architects of our nation's emergence as a self-reliant industrial and educational superpower founded on the strength of Indian capability and enterprise. He is the prime inspiration of the APJ Satya and Swaran Group and the visionary architect of the APJ Education Society and the founder-chancellor of the APJ Satya University. Dr. Stya Paul was a man who overcame all odds to become one of the most respected men of this nation. We shall now showcase a short film on Dr. Stya Paul, in whose fond remembrance these awards have been instituted.
Eminent industrialist, educationist, freedom fighter, and philanthropist, Dr. Stya Paul founded the APJ Satya and Swaran Group that has achieved an iconic status in independent India. The group is known as a trusted symbol of quality and excellence in the country's industrial landscape. A pioneering visionary with a deep commitment to society, Dr. Paul remained the inspiration and the guiding force behind the APJ Education Society, which he established in 1967. Today, the society provides quality education from pre-primary to doctoral levels to over 32,000 students through 29 educational institutions. Dr. Stya Paul was also the founder-chancellor of the APJ Satya University, India's first liberal arts and meta university. APJ Satya University aims to produce young Renaissance men and women who would be leaders of today and tomorrow. Born on the 4th of October in the year 1919, he surged ahead and faced all the challenges with firm determination. A brilliant scholar, Dr. Stya Paul was a university gold medalist in mathematics in undivided Punjab. During the course of the independence struggle in India, he became quite involved as a freedom fighter. As a result of his active participation, he was imprisoned by the British during the famous Quit India movement. Dr. Stya Paul lost his parents at a very young age, but he took up the responsibilities of taking care of his entire family and running the family business. Under his inspirational leadership, the APJ Satya and Swaran Group has become one of the most reputed corporate houses of the country. Apart from its large social commitment to education, it is actively participating in other business enterprises as well. Throughout his long and illustrious life, Dr. Stya Paul held responsible positions reflecting his versatility, his leadership, and his eminence. Numerous awards and honors were bestowed upon Dr. Stya Paul, though he never desired any monuments for himself. Dr. Stya Paul's humility, simplicity, and affection impressed one and all. The happiest moments of his life were spent with children. He made us believe that it is not a disgrace if dreams remained unfulfilled, but it is a disgrace if we have no dreams at all. A true Karma Yogi, Dr. Stya Paul retained his zeal for hard work even during his advanced age and remained keenly involved in the management of the APJ institutions. Active till the very end, he departed from the world peacefully on the 7th of June 2010 while preparing to leave for office. His daughter, Sushma Barlia, together with her husband, Vijay Barlia, and their children, Nishant, Aditya, and Neha, carry forward the legacy of excellence, trust, and growth of the group. You are a spiritual being. You are energy, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just changes from one form to another. Therefore, the pure essence of you has always been and will always be with us.
नए गगन में नया सूर्य जो चमक रहा है, यह विशाल भूखंड आज जो दमक रहा है, मेरी भी आभा है इसमें. Dr. Satyapal, a luminary, our beacon light, has been a source of great inspiration to all of us, and carrying forward his glorious legacy is his daughter and his only child, Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia. Mrs. Barlia is a leading woman entrepreneur and educationist of the country. She is the co-promoter and president of the APJ Stya and Swaran Group and chairperson of APJ Education Society. She is also the co-founder and chancellor of the APJ Stya University, India's first industry-centric technology and liberal arts university focused on research and innovation. Spearheading the APJ Stya and Swaran Group, Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia has earned accolades for her professional approach towards building a diverse range of businesses with a focused culture on innovation and decision-making. Mrs. Barlia was the first ever woman to head a multi-state apex chamber in India as the president of PhD CCI in 2005-2006. She has also played a great leading role in the Indian pharmaceutical industry and has been actively involved in taking up various important issues like drug norms and price regulations. She was nominated to represent India at the Commission of Biotech Society by the International Chamber of Commerce. She was also nominated to represent the Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers of India in the Internet Task Force of the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association. Mrs. Barlia is a noted educationist who has immensely contributed to educational policy reforms in India related to access, equity, higher education, and skill development. For over 2 decades, Mrs. Barlia has actively championed the cause of the girl child and women's empowerment at various national and international forums. She represented India at the UN World Social Summit held at Copenhagen and delivered the keynote address on the role of women at the workplace. Mrs. Barlia has many awards to her credit, including Outstanding Businesswoman Award of the PhD CCI, the International Lifetime Achievement Award 2009 of the International Congress of Women in collaboration with the Government of India and the UNIC, and a special honor by the Punjab Technical University for her contributions to biotechnology, life sciences, and research. In 2012, Mrs. Barlia was felicitated by the Confederation of Indian Industries for outstanding contribution to academia and industry with a similar honor confirmed by FICCI in 2013. The Exemplary Leader Award for Outstanding Contribution to Industry and Academia was conferred upon her by the Asian Confederation of Business and CMO Asia in 2013. She's also one of the 4 members from India on the Executive Committee of Women's Federation for World Peace, South Asia. Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia has also been felicitated by the Skill Tree Knowledge Consortium at the House of Commons, London in June 2014 and 2017 for her contribution to Indian education and industry. Mrs. Barlia was felicitated in December 2015 by CII at the 5th University Industry Congress, Higher Education Summit, for being Global Outstanding Leader in the field of higher education and industry. She was also conferred the Education Leader of the Year by the Worldwide Achievers Asia Education Summit and Awards 2016 and the prestigious Hall of Fame Award at the 9th BBC Knowledge and DNA Innovative Leadership Awards 2017. Mrs. Barlia has also been conferred the prestigious Lokmat Women at Work Leadership Award 2017 at the Lokmat Corporate Excellence Awards, Mumbai. The awards to be presented today will be presented by our chief guest later in the evening. We have included some new awards also, and before that, I request Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia to kindly address the gathering. Her words are always a source of great inspiration for all of us. Ma'am.
Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, Dr. J.B. Sharma, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps I should just say brothers and sisters, and I can happily say that since Mr. Barlia is not in the audience. On behalf of him, myself, and the entire extended APJ community and family, it is indeed my proud privilege to add a warm welcome to all of you and thank you for taking the time out to being with us on this IOG Dr. Stya Paul Awards function 2017. I am indeed very grateful, particularly to all our medical fraternity who have come from various corners of the country to specially be with us on this very special occasion, and many of you have been honoring us this way year after year. I cannot even begin to express my gratitude. It is also indeed honor and privilege to welcome our oration speaker, Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, who, as you know, is the Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Professor of Epidemiology, Population and Family Health at Columbia's Mailman School of Public Health, and the attending physician at the New York Presbyterian Hospital. Dr. Carolyn Westhoff research interests include epidemiologic studies concerning reproductive health, contraceptive development, and evaluation. She is, of course, also the editor-in-chief of Contraception, a widely well-respected international journal. Dr. Westhoff, a very, very warm welcome to you, and thank you once again for taking out the time to be with us and to have delivered this oration lecture. As many of us are aware, India was one of the first countries to adopt an official population policy and launch an official family planning program way back in 1952, which still remains the mainstay of our family planning efforts. However, universal adoption of small family norms still remains a distant dream in India. During 2007-2008, only 54% of the married population were using a contraceptive method to regulate their fertility. Moreover, contraceptive practice in India is known to be heavily skewed towards terminal methods, which means that contraception in India is practiced primarily for birth limitation rather than also birth planning, which is truly critical for women's health as well as women empowerment. Throughout the history of medicine, thousands of drugs have been developed, but only one has been perhaps influential enough to earn the title of simply the pill, one of the most popular and convenient methods of contraception. Introduced in 1950, the oral contraceptive pill is a medical innovation that has dramatically transformed generations. Women have gained incredible freedom and reproductive autonomy. Family planning has advanced women's economic empowerment, women's educational opportunities, and the children's well-being in the long run. And yesterday I have a very interesting discussion around it. Indeed, it is one of the most transformational developments in this sector. And though there are a multitude of contraception opportunities now available to women, what is important and very critical is methods of contraception, particularly those that are available to women as a choice. That awareness is widespread because that choice in her hands is what truly constitutes women empowerment in its all senses. Therefore, perhaps it is befitting, both for this reason as well as for another reason, and that is, we were having a dinner conversation with Dr. Carolyn Westhoff. And if I may share, Dr. Carolyn, that there were two occasions where I really found her eyes light up with passion and with joy. One was when she was really into her subject. And, she was talking about the different kinds of contraceptions, the different kind of pills that are available, the new research methodologies and research findings. But the other was also when we were talking about core human values and how important they are as an intrinsic part of both professional and personal life. And that is why I would like to say that it is indeed befitting that it is Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, as a global expert in the field of contraception, of course, who is delivering the oration on this very important topic, the topic being A Pill in Time Saves 9 at the 6th IOG Dr. Stya Paul Awards. गुरु गोबिंद दऊ खड़े काके लागू पाए बलिहारी गुरु आपने जिन दिए गोबिंद बताए. My God and my Guru both are standing before me. Whose feet should I touch first? I commence by touching the feet of my Guru. It is through him that I have come to know God. It is through him that I have truly learned the meaning of life and how to have lived it. And as always, I commence by touching the feet of my Guru, my father, Dr. Stya Paul, before we start. I would like to start with the story of a small boy. 3-4 years old, family migrated from a small village in Haryana called Chang to Punjab, settled there in a city called Jalandhar. This boy developed a deep interest in mathematics. He used to go to a small school there. And when I say small school, there were hardly any schools in those days. This school really was, were no tables, there were no chairs. They used to sit on the mats on the floor. They had what they used to call takhats in those days, which was like a traditional slate on which you used to write. They had to climb up steps, steep steps, no banisters. I think today the school would be banned with all the safety and security measures that we are so concerned about for our children. And every day he would be clambering up those steps and clambering down those steps and doing his education. He went on to study hard because he came from a very humble family background, and so humble that they could not afford electricity. So he used to study with the help of a lantern most of the years. It was only much later that the family could afford electricity. They had a small business of making buckets, but you can understand how small it was if they could not afford electricity. Despite all of that, he continued with his education. He did his bachelor's. He went on to do his master's, and he topped the university and became a gold medalist in combined Punjab, which in those days consisted of all the states of Jammu, Kashmir, Himachal, Punjab, Haryana, and the erstwhile Pakistan. By now, you must know that I'm referring to our founder chairman, Dr. Stya Paul. Despite all of that, he had a deep passion for education, and he wanted to go back and teach in the college in which he had studied for his bachelor's. He was refused because he was physically challenged. He had polio when he was a young child, I think 3-4 years old, and in those days he used to walk with the help of crutches. His left leg was almost bent up. It was only much later in life, when they could afford, then he did go to the US and had an operation in Boston at the Massachusetts General Hospital, and which enabled him to then walk with a walking stick and calipers. So he went to this college wanting to teach, but was refused because he was physically challenged. So he went back to the family business and he started building it up. He lost his mother when he was very young. Actually, she died in childbirth. And he lost his father when he was around 23, 24. So on his shoulders fell the responsibility of educating his siblings. There were 7 of them, brothers and sisters, and getting them settled in life. He didn't let any of that deter him. He certainly didn't let his physical challenge deter him at all. As you heard, he was also a freedom fighter. He fought in the Quit India movement. He was found distributing seditious literature against the British, was put into jail. He was supposed to have been sent to Kalapani, that is your Andaman Nicobar. For some reason, they did not do that, but they did call his father and said that please tell him to disclose the names of all those who are involved with the movement. Otherwise, this is the last that you would see of him. But Dr. Stya Paul stood firm. And his father also knew his son. He said, I'm not going to tell him something which I know that I would not want him to do and that he would never do. So he spent many days in the jail, and at that time he came in contact with many leaders who were part of the freedom movement in those days. And that is when he started reading as well. I think I have still that copy of his collected works of Rabindranath Tagore with his underline and highlights of the words that he had found inspiring when he was there. So that didn't deter him either. In fact, he shared with me that one of the most wonderful things looking back was having gone to jail, because that is what finally made him fearless. Because what worse could have happened? To go to jail or to lose your life? And he certainly went to jail, and he was on the point of losing his life. So with that, with the advent of India's independence, there were many opportunities. And as luck would have it, he was able to make use of those opportunities. He started with the steel sector. They had steel quotas in those days. And he was able to gain that because he had the determination as well as the courage to go and speak to the British officer, this is pre-independence, who was in charge of giving those steel quotas. And till date, this is what he shared with me, he still doesn't know what sort of led to his actually acceding to give him that. In those days, quotas were the important things. Remember, this was the license permit Raj days. So from there started the journey, and rest in a way is history. You have heard that he ended up making an industrial empire for which was renowned all over the country in different sectors of operations. But his desire to contribute to nation building and to give back to society remained with him, and his passion for education remained with him. So post-independence, there were not very many good educational institutions in this country. There were some few missionary schools, there were some schools by the Arya Samaj, and his vision was to have put into place an environment and be able to have a kind of education given wherein the entire potential of a child could develop to its full bloom. And physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, giving to them the opportunity of having the best of global scientific information and knowledge while remaining rooted in Indian culture and human values. So that was the first school that he set up and started running himself in Jalandhar. Before that, he made a few schools and gave them to the local communities to run. But he realized that if he really wanted to have this vision actualized, he would have to get it done himself. I have shared this often enough with you, and many of you have been with us coming over the years. But the reason that I continue to share this year after year is I find that every time when I talk about it, I get a renewed sense of inspiration from the man that he was. Not because of what he achieved, and he achieved a lot. I mean, we have now 32,000 students studying, and schools, universities, colleges, the industries that he set up. Although I don't count that as his achievements. Those are things that are a byproduct of what he was trying to do. And I think what he was truly trying to do was to work towards his vision and mission of being fulfilled and doing the best and the most of the person that he was. And this is the message. If I were to look at his life and we were to see some of the values that come forth from that, this is why we need to remember him. Many of us today, and I know a lot of the children today are very confused. They get such conflicting messages from society and environment where they actually start believing that can you actually be successful while staying true to core human values? Well, this was a life that did that. So it is not that we want to follow in his footsteps is why we remember him. But it is because the values that he stood for should inspire us to create our own footsteps in the sands of time. Each one of us is unique. Each one of us has the potential to be great, to be a grandest version of ourselves. It should be our mission in our life in all dimensions. I have often asked him, what is the secret of your success? And there were two answers I got. One was, for me, work is worship. I worked hard, I had visions, I had ideas, and things just happened. Money was a byproduct of that. Recognition was a byproduct of that. Not that you aim for those things, they come. So the other was a formula which, being a mathematician, I suppose, he expressed in mathematical terms. He said success is equal to lambda multiplied by hard work, multiplied by right choice, and divided by confusion. So his point was, of course, hard work. Right choice being smart work. Lambda, if you are wondering, stood for what? Stood for element of luck or the grace of God, whatever you would like to believe in. And confusion to him was the greatest enemy a person could have, because the most important thing in life is to have clarity of thought. And where does clarity come from? That clarity of thought, as he used to share with me, gets diffused, gets confused, gets clouded when we get attached to our desires. We want something so badly that we become angry if we don't get it. We get upset if we don't get it. Or that's why we are generally angry, isn't it? If somebody is not behaving the way we want them to, if somebody is not giving us what they want us to do, if somebody is an obstacle in face of what we want to achieve, that's where anger stems from. And from anger comes delusion. You forget who you really are. The power that lies within each one of us, the potential, the grandeur to achieve something enormous within ourselves. And when that happens, you also become fearful. You are afraid. And that leads to confusion. Of course, confusion also is in terms of not having clarity and enough information in terms of real knowledge as well. So clarity of thought is what takes away from much of what we do. So these were the two formulas I thought I would like to share with you today. You know, I just went this year to Mount Kailash and Mansarovar. I've been wanting to do for a very long time, but I wasn't sure if I could do it. You know, it's very high, almost 19,000 feet is where, meters, I think, feet is where you go. There's a huge issue of oxygen, and you really need to be very fit, particularly if you want to take that parikrama, that 42 kilometers around it. Irrespective of, whether it means something to you spiritually or not. It is an expedition and something that needs to be worked for in itself. And I wanted to do that, and then I had an opportunity. A dear friend of ours suggested that, we are going, would you like to join us? Without thinking, I said yes. Then I realized I would have to prepare myself for it now, because I'm not a very fit person at all. I mean, I must be very honest. I do my yoga and pranayam, which is a good start. But you certainly need to also have developed enough physical exercise to be able to walk those many kilometers at that time and to take the lack of oxygen. So that's when started my early morning jogging routines and walking routines and all kinds of other preparations when you go on a trek like this. The reason I'm sharing with you is, one, it brought home to me so clearly some of the values that get exhibited by Dr. Satya Paul's lives. We are talking about having a dream. You need to have something that you want to have in your life, some idea, some dreams, some vision. You certainly need to be determined to want it. If you just vaguely want it, nothing will happen. I mean, we all vaguely want things. How much do we really want? That is what is important. So the determination, the execution. Okay, I mean, I've dreamt, I really want it, and I'm just sitting. That's not enough. I need to do something about it. As they say, if you have vision without execution, it's only a dream. On the other hand, of course, if you have execution without vision, it's a nightmare. So, determination, dedication, you need to actually make the steps to work towards it. And you need to be a little bit fearless, because everybody was scaring me up and down that what all could happen to me over there, to the point where I almost felt maybe I should cancel my trip. I should share that I suffer from allergic bronchitis, so it was therefore not always a wise thing to do, but nevertheless, I was so, and then being there, just the standing still of a small human being in the grandeur of those beautiful mountain ranges around you and the Kailash mountain over there with the height. It made you realize how insignificant and small are our issues in life and all the things that we always worry about. And it also made you realize not only were they small and insignificant, but that grandeur was in a way part of you. Despite all of that, you could have reached there and be part of it. And that is the grandeur within us that we need to reach out towards, which is within each one of us. Dr. Stya Paul had another very interesting side to him. It's not that he didn't earn lots of money and wealth, he did. But if I were to look back and think of what brought the most light into his eyes, it was not when he got his, next lot of money as a result of a business venture. It was not necessarily when, let's say, I came first in school on a particular day. It was really when one day, I think I must have been in class 2 or 3, I took to him a small paper which showed different ladders named with different religions, all going towards one spiritual being. Now, he was so excited about it when I think back. I was just trying to remember, because he thought that this was amazing that a small child could grasp that, this is the commonality between all paths to that spiritual being. But really, when I think back, I think what was extraordinary is that is what brought the maximum light to his eyes. This is the biggest present that he could have got in his life, that, wow, this is something that my child seems to have realized. And again, I think that is what defines how we stand as role models in our lives to our children and to the people around us. How passionate are we about what we are doing in life? What matters most to us? What is the closest to our heart? We can give any number of lectures to our children and to our juniors. But what's truly going to work is the life that we lead, the mentors that we are. They will see from our joys, our frustrations, our anger, our happiness, what is it that truly matters in life. And this is something that I thought was worth sharing. It's now almost 7 years since he passed away. But despite all of that, even today, you will be surprised that people still continue coming to me from different, they have been doing this since he passed away. But even today, I still continue to meet many, many people from different walks of life, from different parts of the country, who come to share with me how he made a difference in their lives. Either he helped them set up a business, or he gave them a piece of advice, or it was just the smile that he always constantly had on his face. It was really a smile that inspired you, which made a difference to what they were doing. The scholarships that he gave, many of people didn't know at that time that he was the person behind those scholarships, and perhaps came to know later. And therefore, I like to feel that he was not somebody who sought or did not even like to get recognitions or awards or have any monuments built to himself. But they are living monuments to him everywhere. Certainly in terms of the schools, the colleges, the universities. Every time when I walk through them, I can feel his living presence in terms of the inspiration and the mission and the vision that he set behind us. But beyond that, the living monuments are the differences that he made in the lives of all those students, teachers, friends, industrialists, doctors even, people from all walks of life who he had come in contact with. He was talking about corporate responsibility and emphasizing the integral relation between ethics and business long time before it became fashionable to do so. And it was he who set to us the mission that no matter what you earn, you must set aside at least 10% to be given for different people of the underprivileged, the women, and so on. His integrity was legendary, and he was a leading voice of Indian industry, a visionary trendsetter who put Jalandhar and Punjab on the industrial map of India almost single-handedly. Throughout his life, he was actively associated with several social, cultural, and professional bodies, and held many responsible positions reflecting his versatility, leadership, and standing both in industry and in social circles. He also continued to have a deep concern for the physically challenged and the underprivileged who could not get access to good treatment, and throughout his life contributed to the cause of good health care for the poor. For several decades, he served as the president of Gulab Baby Hospital Trust Jalandhar and initiated several health schemes, including the free treatment of TB patients and the poor. He was actively involved with the Ramakrishna Mission, including their hospitals, and the Indian Council for Child Welfare, and many such organizations, including the Rotary, that worked for the upliftment and free treatment of the needy and the physically challenged. And it was also his desire to set up an institution of APJ dedicated to healthcare in the country. And on the culmination of his dream of establishing the APJ Satya University 2010, he was quite keen to establish a center of excellence for healthcare within the university itself. At the APJ Satya Group, we've tried to carry forward his vision of contributing to healthcare, both in our foray into medical allied businesses that uphold, however, the highest ethics and standards, and through the Walter Bushnell Healthcare Foundation. The foundation is among the many specialized centers of excellence of the APJ Satya University, set up in collaborations in institutions from both private and public domain that cater to diversified domains such as design innovation, biosciences, pharmaceuticals, incubation, and entrepreneurship. The aim of the Walter Bushnell Healthcare Foundation is to promote awareness of healthcare issues around the country and to work with the medical fraternity to improve healthcare in the country and further the frontiers of medical research and innovation. It is perhaps this inspiration that we have received from him which has laid the foundation for what I would like to call the soul of our organization, both in our businesses and in our social commitments, and in the values that we stand by: the willingness to learn, the willingness to work hard, integrity, long-term and sustainability of relationships, and the creation of wealth. The creation of wealth being very different from just earning money. I would like to congratulate all the award winners today. We are indeed delighted and privileged to be able to bestow the IOG Dr. Satya Paul Awards to all of you. It is, in fact, a reflection both of the core human values as well as the dedication to research, innovation, and the desire to contribute to awareness of healthcare knowledge, which has brought you and would be giving you these awards. Many of you, in your own way, are working, I know, in so many ways in contribution to the healthcare of this country. And I also salute you in the work that you are doing. I would like to end with an Urdu couplet, which perhaps reflects the work and the determination that has gone in by all of you here in the work that you do in your daily lives, and of course the winners of our awards. Rahe talab mein jazbaye kamil ho jiske saath. It means if your intensity of dedication matches your intensity of desire for achieving something. Rahe talab mein jazbaye kamil ho jiske saath, khud dhoond leti hai manzil use kabhi kabhi. If your intensity of desire is matched with your intensity of dedication, your desired goal itself will search you out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for such beautiful, inspiring words. Success, ladies and gentlemen, is a natural corollary of perseverance, dedication, vision, and commitment. And Dr. Satyapal's life is a quintessence of all this. A proud daughter and a dedicated disciple that Madam Barlia is, she's been proudly carrying forward the legacy of her father, and following in their footsteps is now the next generation. I would now call upon Mr. Nishant Barlia for presenting his welcome address. He's a member, Management Board, APJ Satya and Swaran Group, and alumnus of Stanford University, USA. Mr. Barlia has worked with the group's operations in India, Europe, and the Middle East, and is actively involved in the group's pharmaceutical vertical. He is currently the chairman of the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry's Health Committee, member of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry Pharma Committee, Life Sciences and Council, and Intellectual Property Rights Committee. Eldest grandson of Dr. Satyapal and son of Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia and Mr. Vijay Barlia, Mr. Nishant Barlia is also involved in various social causes. He is also the General Secretary of the APJ Education Society. I now request him to present his welcome address.
Thank you very much indeed for the kind introduction. Honorable Chief Guests, Professor Carolyn Westhoff, respected President Madam, Professor J.B. Sharma, honored chairpersons, members of the IOG Editorial Board, eminent dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the APJ Satya Group, the APJ Satya University, and the Walter Bushnell Healthcare Foundation, I'm delighted to extend a very hearty and formal welcome to the 2017 IOG Dr. Satyapal Oration Lecture and Awards, instituted in memory of our late chairman, Dr. Satyapal. We are immensely humbled by your presence here today. And I thought, Madam has shared a lot about Dr. Paul, but I thought I would link it to two small indications to share, especially why we feel so privileged to here today to have your presence. Dr. Paul, as a gold medalist mathematician in his very early days, believed very much in the importance of science and innovation and its ability to transform societies. While the circumstances of his earlier years prevented him from plunging into a world of research and academia, he held a lifelong passion for research, learning, and innovation. In industry, he would deep dive into vast technical journals and textbooks, seek out the guidance of best global experts, and engage them and his teams to flesh out best practices and frontiers of each field he was involved in. A tinkerer, he himself would undertake, and when the organization grew larger through teams, to study and experiment with a view to build and adopt the best, whether state-of-the-art manufacturing plants or new technologies. In education, and Dr. Westhoff, from our earlier conversations out there, he always pushed for the inculcation of evidence-based practices and attracting the best of academic talent and guidance from India and abroad. And perhaps best reflected in our APJ Satya University, which none other than Times UK recently profiled as one of the most innovative new universities in the world, something we're very, very proud about. In medicine, since today that's where we really are, he had a very personal experience with his travel to the Massachusetts General Hospital, Boston, as a young man for polio-corrective surgery, which was then a new procedure not available in India. Throughout his life subsequently, he was very active in not only supporting the efforts of eradication of polio. As we all know, many wonderful people have contributed towards that, but also ensuring the best medical care for polio survivors. As a small example, among his many philanthropic interests, he supported, and in his memory we continue to do, thousands, maybe perhaps even more, similar corrective surgeries, and more importantly, rehabilitation for the physically challenged across India. A very long journey from Boston, very much indeed. Even today, our family feels very blessed when we come across many who remember him not only for his financial support, but for motivating and counseling many to rise above their challenges, and for caregivers to commit themselves to the cause. As another small example, this year I'm very delighted to share, we sponsored the Indian hockey team at a Special Olympics at Austria. Dr. Paul used to play. Thank you very much, and I have some news to add to that as well. And the reason we actually done that was that Dr. Paul used to play hockey in his school days. He was a goalkeeper with his crutches. So he used to always say he had an advantage because he had 3 sticks, what we call, to defend the goals with. And I'm delighted to share that while we struggle as a country in the main Olympics, at these Special Olympics, the Indians' men and women's hockey teams, whom we had sponsored, won gold and bronze respectively. So truly, they are enduring inspiration to many. And perhaps in a small way, we remember their efforts which are there. It is in this spirit we established the Walter Bushnell Healthcare Foundation, which Madam has already talked about as a center of excellence at APJ Satya University, which is engaged in promoting awareness of healthcare issues among the community in India, especially in the Indian context, and furthering the frontiers of medical research and innovation in healthcare. We are now at the 6th IOG Dr. Satya Paul Oration Lecture Awards. We have been blessed to have Professor Arul Kumaran of FIGO, Dr. Philip Stya, Editor-in-Chief of BMJ, Professor Miriam Lumsden, President of the International Menopausal Society, Dr. Ian Fraser, Professor Robert Norman, all very eminent research scientists, all very well known today. And that context, we are extremely grateful that Professor Westhoff is here today to only add to that tradition and to add and to take us even to further heights. So, ma'am, thank you as well for being here today. With your support and guidance, we hope this event, what we call, grows stronger every year. Thank you once again. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. We are pleased to have Dr. J.B. Sharma, Chief Editor of the journal, IOG Journal, which has emerged as one of the most sought-after publications among the medical fraternity. Dr. Sharma is a professor in the Department of Obs and Gynae, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. He specializes in key gynecological areas, including urogynecology, genital tuberculosis, and medical disorders in pregnancy. He has served as professor at the Maulana Azad Medical College and has been associated with various hospitals in the UK. Dr. J.B. Sharma has 300 publications in indexed and non-indexed journals, including 150 in peer-reviewed indexed international and national journals. He has presented over 200 papers in various conferences and has also chaired many sessions. He's been awarded many times by the Royal College of Obs and Gynae, London, and has won the Indian Council of Medical Research Award on his work on anemia during pregnancy. He was awarded the Honorable Dr. B.C. Roy Award for Research in 2015 by the Honorable President of India, and he also won the Dr. Labshetwar Award in 2016 for his research in genital TB. I now request Dr. J.B. Sharma to share his editorial insights on the IOG Journal.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your nice introduction. And respected Madam Sushma Paul Barblia, co-promoter and president APJ Satya and Swaran Group, co-founder and chancellor of APJ Satya University and chairman of APJ Foundation. Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, and professor of Obs and Gynae and professor of epidemiology and population and family health at Columbia Mailman School of Public Health, and also editor-in-chief of contraception, which we highly look for. And I'm very glad that my teachers, Professor Alka Kriplani, Professor Kamal Bakshi Malhotra, Sir Dr. Sarawala, Sonawala, Ashok Kumar, and many other colleagues. If I've forgotten some names, please acknowledge me for that. So I really thank you for supporting this journal and supporting me. So I'm really delighted to share the details of our Indian Obstetrics and Gynae Journal, which was first started in January 2011 as a new specialty journal in Obs and Gynae to provide a platform to budding and established authors as well as budding authors to publish their original research articles, review articles, case reports, book reviews, letter to editor and other scientific information in the field of Obs, Gynae as well as infertility. In fact, all the articles submitted to the journal are properly peer-reviewed by experts and honorary editorial board members, many of whom are present today, thanks to you, and all the subspecialties of Obs and Gynae from all over the world, like maternal fetal medicine, assisted reproduction, reproductive endocrinology, Gynae onco, urogynae, minimal invasive gynae, they are taken into consideration. So the journal solicits and reviews articles from all these categories. And all the articles are expected to be written in accordance to uniform requirements for manuscripts submitted to biomedical journal like Vancouver style. So Carolyn would agree with me that, I mean, same I think like in contraception you got. And we try to minimize the time of publication by speedily sending for review as well as, but I solicit your response if you quickly do the corrections and then we can publish them early. The journal is published by APJ Satya Publishing Private Limited with Madam's cooperation, but it's totally independent of the publication house as far as scientific content is concerned. And I'm delighted that the performance of journal has been really well accepted by the fraternity in our specialty, and the readers enthusiastically await for the next issue. I keep getting phone calls, emails that when the next issue is coming, and when the issue comes, then they send appreciation letters and emails to me. And we are getting record number of quality articles, not only from Obs Gynae, from other specialties also. In fact, I got recently from one dentist also, like dental problems in pregnancy. So we really welcome that. And even the students sometimes send. I really appreciate that. And so to cater it, we may even publish the journal more often, like it's quarterly journal now, but we might publish it bi-monthly as we are getting record number of cases. And I wish to thank all the international and national editorial board members and reviewers who work hard and selflessly for the journal by contributing and reviewing quality articles. And most important are our esteemed readers, of course, without whom the journal would never have been successful. And I'm really proud to say that this year, we have recently got the journal indexed with Cosmos Foundation of Germany. The journal is already indexed in Abesco USA as well as Google Scholar. So all the previous issues of the journal right from the first are available in these databases now. And indexation of a journal is considered a reflection of quality, and indexed journal are considered to be higher scientific quality as compared to non-indexed journal. I think everybody wants to be published in indexed journal, including me and of course. So we are not yet, indexed with PubMed. Ultimate aim is to get indexed in PubMed. But we have got, three indexing, Cosmos, Embase we are trying, and Abesco and Google Scholar. And ultimate aim is, of course, PubMed, for which I need solicit your cooperation by sending quality articles to us, which will be peer-reviewed, and if found of sufficient merit, they will be published. In fact, we will publish Carolyn Westhoff's editorial also in the future issue. And so it is due to the contribution of quality studies by our esteemed authors and untiring efforts of our editorial board members that the journal has this quality. And I'm particularly thankful to APJ Satya Publishing Society, especially Madam Sushma Paul Barlia, and for selflessly publishing the journal as a service to the medical fraternity. And I'm thankful to Dr. Manju Purohit and the team members and all the editorial board members sitting here. And if I fail to mention somebody's name, please forgive me. So we encourage researchers to submit high-quality manuscript to us so that we can improve the journal further, and ultimate aim is indexing with the PubMed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. In fact, it's a matter of great pride for us that IOG is now also indexed in Cosmos Foundation, Abesco, and Google Scholar, and more reader bases are expected very shortly. I now request Professor Carolyn Westhoff to present green certificates to the editorial board members of the IOG Journal and the eminent personalities of the Obs and Gynae fraternity. And I also request Madam Sushma Paul Barlia to present a book to them, which was a source of great inspiration to Dr. Satya Paul. I would also now call upon all these people one by one. Dr. Sunita Malik. Dr. Shalini Rajaram. Dr. Mridubhashini Govindarajan. Dr. Ashok Kumar. Dr. Alka Kriplani. Dr. Jaideep Malhotra after this. Dr. Pratap Kumar. Dr. Kamal Bakshi. Dr. Purnima Nadkarni. Dr. Ratnabali Chakrabarti. Dr. Vibhashini Prasad. Dr. Vinita Singh. Dr. Queen Aditya. Dr. Kamal Gujral. Dr. Pragya Mishra Chaudhary, and Dr. R.P. Soonawala. And now we'll have a group photograph. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, the IOG Journal has emerged as a trusted and well-researched referral publication for the medical fraternity and is now indexed in Cosmos Foundation and EBSCO and Google Scholar. In order to maximize its reach across the globe, we are delighted to announce that the IOG Journal is also available online with all its issues just a click away in a structured and reader-friendly format. And I now request Professor Carolyn to release the latest issue of the IOG Journal. That's the latest issue of our journal. That's a copy of the journal. We hope that all of you will log into the website and become part of the IOG family. Thank you. We shall now proceed to the much-awaited presentation of the IOG Dr. Satya Paul Awards 2017. The awards are being given to the authors of best papers published in the IOG Journal under 3 categories: Best Case Report, Best Review Article, and Best Original Study. The jury, comprising of national and international experts, reviewed all submissions to IOG for the year 2016, and the names of the eminent authors were kept confidential to maintain complete authenticity. A lot of effort went into reviewing these submissions, and we would like to thank each of our jury members for the same. Ladies and gentlemen, the award for the Best Case Report goes to Dr. Garima Yadav, Assistant Professor, Department of Obs and Gynae, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Jodhpur. I now request her to come on stage and make a brief presentation of her case report. Dr. Garima has won the award for isolated torsion of the fallopian tube. Suspicion is the key to success. This case highlights that tubal torsion should be included in the different diagnosis of acute abdomen in females of all age groups in order to timely intervene and prevent permanent damage to the patient's fertility. Dr. Garima Yadav.
Good morning, everyone. To begin with, I would like to thank the Editor-in-Chief, respected Dr. J.B. Sharma, sir, all the members of the editorial board, and the respected jury members. The title of my article was Isolated Torsion of the Fallopian Tube. Suspicion is the key to success. So as we see in our day-to-day practice, that torsion of the tube is usually associated with ovarian torsion and is almost every time it is secondary to the ovarian pathologies. Isolated tubal torsion in itself is a very rare entity with an incidence of only 1 in 1.5 million women. It is more common in reproductive age women, but can be seen throughout all age groups. So it is defined as twisting by at least one complete turn of the fallopian tube around a central line consisting of IP ligament and tubo-ovarian ligament. It can be a primary tubal torsion because of certain intrinsic tubal factors or secondary to certain other adnexal pathologies. The aim of this case report was to highlight the importance of suspecting tubal torsion in young girls who present with vague abdominal symptoms and are usually misdiagnosed as cases of simple ovarian cyst based on imaging, and in the absence of any cyst in the adnexa, they are usually managed conservatively. So our patient was a 20-year-old unmarried girl who presented with chief complaints of severe non-radiating pain in the lower abdomen associated with nausea and vomiting. Patient had symptoms of intermittent colicky pain localized to the right side of the abdomen for the preceding 3 days. She was being treated by general practitioners with analgesics. Later, she was referred to the surgeons who were managing her on lines of appendicitis. Her ultrasound examination revealed a single anechoic cyst of around 6 into 6 centimeters in the right adnexa, which was suspected to be of ovarian origin, but it had normal vascular flow in the ovarian pedicle. So on imaging findings, torsion was ruled out. On examination, there was tenderness in the right iliac fossa, but there was no palpable mass or any rigidity or guarding. On per-rectal examination, it revealed a cystic tender mass in the posterior fornix. All her hematological parameters were normal and her CA-125 levels were also normal. Urine pregnancy test was done, which was negative. But since her pain was unresolving over a period of around 7 days, we took the decision of doing a diagnostic laparoscopy for her. And on laparoscopy, ovaries were found to be completely normal, and on the right side, the tube was twisted by almost 4 turns, and it appeared dilated and grossly necrotic. There was an associated hydrosalpinx noted at the femoral end, which was lying in the pouch of Douglas. The tubal surface also appeared black and gangrenous. So after explaining the pros and cons to the parents, we took the decision of doing a laparoscopic salpingectomy for her. Since there were almost 4 twists in the tube, we thought that maybe this was the reason of her torsion, and we wanted to remove the tubes. We had to remove the necrotic tubes. So coming to the etiology of tubal torsion, it could be primary tubal torsion because of certain intrinsic factors like hydrosalpinx, hematosalpinx, tubal ligation, endometriosis, tubal neoplasms, congenital tubal anomalies, and tubal hypermobility. It could be secondary tubal torsion because of certain extrinsic factors like ovarian or parovarian or paratubal cyst, adhesions, ovarian hyperstimulation, PCOS, pregnancy, pelvic congestion of the mesosalpinx, trauma, and sudden change of body position. So they say that right-sided tubal torsions are more common because on the left side there is sigmoid colon present, which prevents the hypermobility of the tube, and also there is slow venous drainage on the right side, which results in congestion. Whenever there's tubal torsion, this will lead to obstruction of the blood flow, and it will lead to ischemia and necrosis. The main idea is to diagnose the condition in time and do the detorsion in time so as to restore the blood supply and prevent the permanent damage to the tube. It poses a diagnostic dilemma to the treating physician because the presenting signs and symptoms are very, very non-specific. They mimic conditions like acute appendicitis, ovarian torsion, ectopic pregnancies, PID. But as we all know that unless our sonologist tells us that it is ovarian torsion, we always hesitate to put in a scope and make the diagnosis. What is the role of imaging? As I said, in this case also, these were non-specific and non-conclusive. It might reveal a cystic mass, and that too if the tubal torsion is associated with hydrosalpinx. Otherwise, the diagnosis is completely missed on imaging alone. The sensitivity of the ultrasound is as low as 22%. Harman et al. In the year 2008 studied a number of cases, and they said that to look for tubal torsion, one must look for certain specific signs like presence of a convoluted cystic mass, which tapers as it nears the uterine conum, with a typical beads on a string sign, and demonstrate the ipsilateral ovary to be completely normal. Doppler again may or may not reveal absent diastolic flow in the vascular pedicle, because usually our sonologists will see the vascular pedicle close to the uterus. So the diagnosis is usually delayed just based on imaging findings. So the key to successful management is early diagnosis and intervene so as to restore the affected blood supply and prevent ischemia and necrosis. There are certain observations made which say that pain lasting for more than 10 hours before surgery is associated with an increased rate of tubal necrosis. So the decision has to be taken in time. Laparoscopic exploration and management is preferred because of its inherent advantages of being a minimally invasive procedure. Depending on the duration of torsion and corresponding extent of damage to the tube, one must take the decision of doing detorsion and preserving the tubes, or doing a complete salpingectomy. So to conclude, I would like to say that priority must be given to include tubal torsion as one of the important differentials of acute abdomen in reproductive aged women. Since the diagnosis is usually delayed, permanent damage has almost always occurred in these cases, and tubes will appear gangrenous while we are doing laparoscopy. So when salpingectomy is done, it obviously compromises the fertility potential to a great extent. The rate of conservative surgical treatment by detorsion of the tossed tube is found to be reported to be only done in 12% of the cases, and the long-term outcomes of this conservative detortion are yet not available. But since the recent literature supports conservatively managing a tossed ovary, so this principle should also be applied while managing isolated tubal torsion. To summarize, isolated tubal torsion is an important entity to be considered in women presenting with acute abdominal gynae casualties. Suspicion and early diagnosis is mandatory in order to prevent irreversible vascular damage. So in spite of the availability of advanced imaging techniques, it is difficult to diagnose this condition based on clinical and imaging grounds alone. So whenever in doubt, please put in a scope as soon as possible and do an immediate laparoscopic confirmation followed by a conservative therapy in the form of detorsion whenever possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garima, and many, many congratulations. I now request Professor Dr. Carolyn Westhoff to present the award to Dr. Garima Yadav. That's the award for the best case report. I also request the co-authors, Dr. Rahul Manchanda, Head of Gynae Endoscopy Unit, Manchanda's Endoscopic Center, New Delhi, to kindly come on stage. As the other co-author, Dr. Charu Pathak, Junior Consultants, Permanent Hospital Civil Lines, is not with us. Dr. Rahul Manchanda will be collecting certificates on behalf of her as well. Dr. Rahul Manchanda. I would now request Dr. Narendra Malhotra and Dr. Maninder Ahuja to kindly come on stage as we want to felicitate them as well. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the presentation of the IOG Awards for the Best Review Article. The award for the Best Review Article goes to Dr. Ashok Kumar, Director, Professor, Department of Ops and Gynae, Maulana Azad Medical College and Lok Nayak Hospital, New Delhi. Dr. Kumar has given his excellent review on micronutrients in pregnancy. Pregnancy, as we all know, is a very important stage in a woman's life, from the period of preconception to pregnancy states, including the post-pregnancy states. Increased amounts of micronutrients and macronutrients are required for the body, and both for the health of the mother as well as the growing fetus. This article highlights the importance of micronutrients in pregnancy and the impact of their deficiency and the status in India. Dr. Ashok Kumar, please.
Good morning, Chairman Badlia Group and APJ Group, Dr. Westhoff, Dr. JB Sharma, my seniors, my teachers, and dear friends and colleagues. I am thankful and honored for IOG, for the IOG for choosing me for this award. And at the outset, I would also like to acknowledge the stimulus given by Dr. Manju Purohit for writing this review article. As you know, the micronutrients are very important in pregnancy, and we keep on reminding and studying and doing research on all these micronutrients very frequently. And the need of this is a very pertinent issue even in today's India. So what are micronutrients? Actually, these are dietary components, often referred as vitamins and minerals. This is a general layman language. It is required by body in small amounts, and they're very important for development of disease prevention and well-being. They're not produced in the body. They are derived from the diet. And they are required by the body for various functions. Although their requirement is very small, sometimes in micrograms or nanograms, but they are very important. And if they are absent or they are low in quantity in the body, the consequences are very severe. In pregnancy, the issue is very great. There are demands because of pregnancy itself as well as because of the growing fetus. So demands are increased. So we need to have higher daily requirements of micronutrients during pregnancy. And therefore, if one is not careful, the deficiency is very common. There are different micronutrients, and various international and Indian bodies have given recommendations and recommended daily dietary allowances, means per day how much micronutrient should be consumed by a pregnant lady. There are various norms for that, and these just refer to a guideline so that one should be careful about that how much micronutrient should be there in the diet. Now start with I will just briefly highlight few of the vitamins and minerals just to highlight their important relevance in pregnancy. I start with biotin. It is B7, and again it is needed as a cofactor for various enzymes and for protein and synthesis of proteins, and proteins are required for the rapidly dividing cells. And it has been seen that if there is a deficiency of biotin, then it is associated with birth defects. Therefore, preconceptional supplementation of biotin in the form of multivitamin that also contain at least 400 microgram folic acid should be recommended. Folic acid, we all know, is a well-read micronutrient, and it has been found to be very useful if given periconceptionally to avoid neural tube defects. Because these neural tube defects occur between 21 to 27 days after conception, and often before many women recognize their pregnancy, so it is recommended that folic acid should be started as soon as any couple plans their pregnancy, so that the patient or the woman is on folic acid when she conceives. Folic acid actually has a surrogate marker in the form of homocysteine, which is elevated if there is a deficiency of folic acid, and high homocysteine levels are associated with many other problems in pregnancy in the form of preeclampsia, premature delivery, low birth weight, and stillbirths, besides neural tube defects. And deficiency of folic acid is also responsible for megaloblastic anemia in pregnancy. Again, it is a very common problem in our country and associated with deficiency of vitamin B12. And I do not think that it is required to go into the detail of folic acid, because in the presence of all learned professors and the scientific community here, I just want to highlight that actually dose of greater than 1 milligram per day of folic acid is used pharmacologically to treat hyperhomocystinemia and to prevent recurrence of neural tube defect. And if there is a history of previous neural tube defect in a lady, then we should advise at least 4 milligram of folic acid per day. The other micronutrient is vitamin B2, riboflavin, and it has been found to be useful for energy metabolism as well as for antioxidant functions. And deficiency has been implicated in preeclampsia. The recommendation for this is 1.4 milligram of riboflavin per day. Vitamin A is very important, and you know, Government of India has also emphasized vitamin A supplementation in the children also for better vision. They are retinoids, and their involvement in regulation of gene expression, cellular proliferation, differentiation, growth and development, and immunity. Deficiency during pregnancy is linked to impaired immunity and increased risk of maternal mortality and morbidity. It has been found to be a precipitating factor for iron deficiency anemia, which is very common in pregnancy. However, one should remember that consumption of excess preformed vitamin A during pregnancy has been demonstrated to cause birth defects. Pregnant women must avoid multivitamin or perinatal supplements that contain more than 1500 microgram of vitamin A. The next micronutrient is vitamin B6. It has a diverse role in body, including nervous system functions. The recommended dietary allowances during pregnancy is 1.9 milligram per day. Even supplementation with very high dose of vitamin B6 is useful in morning sickness of pregnancy. Vitamin B12 is again very critical for DNA methylation during pregnancy, and it has been linked to deficiency of this vitamin B12 has been linked to again anemia and increased risk of neural tubal defects. And one has to be careful whenever we are taking care of vitamin B12 that folic acid supplementation during pregnancy may mask the clinical diagnosis of vitamin B12 deficiency. So one has to, whenever we are treating deficiency for megaloblastic anemia, we have to supplement vitamin B12 as well as folic acid simultaneously. The recommendation for daily intake during pregnancy is 2.6 microgram per day. And this vitamin B12 is found only in food of animal origin. Vegan, lacto-vegetarians are prone to suffer from vitamin B12 deficiency. The vitamin C and DE, and there are few studies in the past where vitamin C, DE has been found to be associated with preeclampsia. And these studies have documented that supplementation of vitamin C, DE during pregnancy decreases the risk of preeclampsia as they work as an antioxidant. Then there are few important minerals, and the important one is iron. Iron deficiency anemia is very common, and we all know. Still, we are seeing the patients with severe iron deficiency anemia in pregnancy. And there is very high risk to the mother as well as to the fetus and to the newborn. The next is zinc. It is an essential constituent of 200 metallozymes and responsible for carbohydrate and protein metabolism, nucleic acid synthesis, antioxidant functions, and other functions at the cellular level. And WHO has said that suboptimal zinc nutrition affected nearly half of the world population. So a decade ago, there was awareness campaign for the public about the zinc supplementation during pregnancy. And it is used to assist the fetus to develop the brain and also to aid to the mother in labor. And if there is a deficiency, it may lead to prolonged labor, fetal growth retardation, or even intrauterine fetal death. Supplemental levels of iron, but not dietary levels of iron, may decrease zinc absorption. So this is also very important. So one has to take care of iron supplementation also when we are talking of zinc supplementation. Then we have magnesium, and it is needed for embryonic and fetal development. Maternal magnesium deficiency has been associated with premature labor and has also been implicated in pathogenesis of sudden infant death syndrome. The important another micronutrient is iodine. Actually, iodine is a major problem in our country, iodine deficiency, and their national program to increase the iodine intake in non-pregnant as well as pregnant women. Their iodine requirements are increased by more than 45% during pregnancy, and adequate intake of iodine is needed for maternal thyroid hormone production, and thyroid hormone is needed for myelination of central nervous system and thus essential for normal fetal brain development. And therefore, if there is a deficiency, there is a problem with cognitive neuromuscular functions of the newborn and the children. The recommendation for daily intake is 220 microgram per day for the pregnant woman. FIGO in 2015 states that even with use of iodized salt and eating seafoods 2-3 days per week, a woman's daily iodine intake would be approximately half the amount of RDA. So even if, we have a lot of campaign about iodized salt and everything, still we should have iodine supplementation in our diet. Maternal iodine deficiency, as I have told, that associated with increased incidence of miscarriage, stillbirth and birth defect, congenital hypothyroidism and neurocognitive deficits in the offspring. And one should remember that this is the most common cause of preventable brain damage in the offspring or in the children. So one should take care of iodine supplementation in pregnancy. Other minor micronutrients are chromium, and copper is important in the sense that maternal dietary deficiency has short-term and long-term issues with this. Now, when we talk of micronutrients in India, actually malnutrition, we know malnutrition is a silent emergency in our country. The burden of reproductive and childhood nutrition is greater than any other country, and we have 1.8 million deaths among children under 5 years and 68,000 deaths among mothers and 52 million children who are stunted in the year 2008. This is a very old data, but the situation has not changed much still. And recently, there was talk about global hunger index, and our country has not improved over the last few years in this ranking. When we are talking of this deficiency, one should see the problem as in a large perspective of the community, where we have so many other issues which have to be tackled simultaneously or in the forefront before we talk of deficiency of micronutrients or supplementation of micronutrients. There are problems like poor quality diets, high fertility rates, repeated pregnancies, short interpregnancy intervals, inadequate health system with poor capacity, poverty and inequalities, socio-cultural factors like early marriages and adolescent pregnancies, and there are few traditional dietary practices which restricts the intake of food and increase physiological needs during pregnancy. So we have to look into all these issues. And one should not forget that isolated micronutrient deficiency or isolated deficiency of a particular micronutrient is not possible in our country. We have global nutritional deficiency in terms of micronutrients, in terms of carbohydrate, in terms of fat, in terms of protein intake, and in terms of total energy intake itself. So one should see the larger picture rather than focusing on micronutrients. In our country, I think if we take care of the sufficient energy requirement in terms of total energy need of the lady in pregnancy and the protein and carbohydrate intake, probably there will not be any deficiency of the micronutrients. So one has to see all these things because it has been observed that pregnant women in India have coexistent deficiency of all the micronutrients and all the components of the diet. We have done recently in last 5 to 6 years, evaluated more than 500 and 600 normal relatives who are coming with the patients, and we have evaluated their dietary intake with all the details, even going into the details of what all they are eating, what was their recipe of their food, even how much quantity raw food and the cooked food they were eating. And we also found and we confirmed the belief that, yes, we have global deficiency of energy intake, protein intake, and fat intake in our dietary habits. I'm not talking of the people who are staying in metros and all those places or the high-class society. I'm talking of the people in the community in the grassroots level. So we have deficiency of all these problems, and therefore micronutrient supplementation in pregnancy is an issue, yes, which needs to be taken care at the community level to prevent the epidemic of malnutrition in the country. So we have to see this deficiency in terms of malnutrition, not as an isolated micronutrient deficiency. Thank you very much.
So the deficiency of micronutrients still remains alarming in India. Thank you, Dr. Kumar, and many, many congratulations. I now request our chief guest to once again do the honors and present the award to him. This time, this is the IOG Dr. Stya Paul Award for Best Review Article. His co-author in this study was Dr. Gunjan Bhatnagar from Vasundhara Hospital and Fertility Research Center, Jodhpur. And Dr. Kumar will also receive the certificate on behalf of his co-author. Thank you. So we now come to the presentation of the IOG Awards for the Best Original Study. The award for the Best Original Study goes to Dr. Shivani Agarwal, Senior Specialist, Department of Obs and Gynae, Kasturba Hospital, Daryaganj, Delhi. Let's hear it for her. She'll make her brief presentation of the original study's serum uric acid levels as a risk stratification tool in hypertensive pregnancy. The objective of the study was to compare serum uric acid levels in normal pregnant and pregnancy-induced hypertension women and to correlate serum uric acid levels with severity of PIH and with maternal and fetal complications. Dr. Shivani Agarwal.
Well, a very good morning to all the distinguished guests, my seniors, colleagues, and friends. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. J.B. Sharma, the members of the Stya Paul group, and the jury who have given me this opportunity to present my article. My topic is serum uric acid level as a risk stratification tool in hypertensive pregnancies. As we all know, pregnancy-induced hypertension is defined as hypertension that occurs in pregnancy for the first time after 20 weeks of gestation and disappears 12 weeks following delivery. The incidence is around 5 to 10%. Preeclampsia is a pregnancy syndrome in which, along with hypertension, there is new onset proteinuria amounting to around 300 milligram per 24 hours. Now, this syndrome, it increases the perinatal mortality by 5-fold and kills 50,000 women yearly worldwide. It contributes to about 24% of maternal deaths in India. Preeclampsia is also associated with certain maternal and fetal complications. Hence, there is a constant search for better prognostic factors to predict the progression and severity of disease so as to prevent complications. Hyperuricemia is one of the characteristic findings in preeclampsia. It is an early sign and it may identify women at increased risk of adverse maternal and particularly fetal outcome. Now, why does hyperuricemia, how does it occur? Basically, there is vasospasm and glomerular endotheliosis, which leads to impaired tubular function and decreased clearance of uric acid, leading to hyperuricemia. And once hyperuricemia occurs, there is more of inflammation, oxidative stress, and this leads to further proteinuria. So this was the brief introduction. Now, what were the aims of my study? To compare the serum uric acid levels in normal pregnant women versus hypertensive pregnant women, to correlate the serum uric acid levels with the severity of preeclampsia and the association of serum uric acid levels with maternal and fetal complications in hypertensive pregnancy. This was a case-controlled study conducted in our Obs and Gynae department. In the case group, we took 125 pregnant hypertensive women with a period of gestation between 20 to 40 weeks of pregnancy as confirmed by LMP and USG. In the control group, there were 125 healthy, normotensive pregnant women. The history of essential hypertension, diabetes, renal, liver disorders, epilepsy, UTI, and gout were excluded. Blood samples were collected for estimation of serum uric acid concentrations. Now, coming to the observations, as we can see here, the serum uric acid levels in the case group ranged between 2.1 to 8.1 milligram per dl, whereas in the control group, they ranged from 2.1 to 3.6 milligram per dl, which was statistically significant. Now, correlating the serum uric acid levels with the severity of PIH, as we can see here, as the severity increases from gestational hypertension to severe preeclampsia, the levels of uric acid tend to rise, that is from 2.1 to 5.6 milligram per dl in gestational hypertension to 3.1 to 8.1 milligram per dl in severe preeclampsia. Now, on comparing the maternal complications in cases, what we did was that in the case group, we divided the case group into two subgroups. One having serum uric acid levels greater than 5 milligram per dl, and the others having serum uric acid level less than 5 milligram per dl. Now, in the women having serum uric acid levels greater than 5 milligram per dl, as we can see here, there were certain complications which were higher and statistically significant as compared to the other subgroup, like proteinuria, need for blood transfusions, platelet transfusions, deranged coagulation, HELLP syndrome, onset of preterm labor pains. Other complications were also there, but they were not statistically significant in our study, like oliguria and abruptio, eclampsia, and maternal mortality. Now, coming to correlating the serum uric acid levels with fetal complications, similarly, between the two subgroups, one having serum uric acid level greater than 5 milligram and the other having less than 5 milligram, the fetal complications which were statistically significant were low Apgar at 1 minute, prematurity, neonatal NICU admissions, low birth weight, less than 2.5 kg. However, other complications were also noted which were higher in the greater than 5 milligram per dl group, although they were not statistically significant, like stillbirths, IUDs, hyperbilirubinemia, expired in NICU, and congenital anomalies. Now, coming to the discussion, as we all know, gestational hypertension, preeclampsia, and eclampsia are all various shades of hypertensive disorders of pregnancy. In our study, we noted that there was a trend of increasing serum uric acid level in hypertensive pregnancies. Also, the serum uric acid levels were higher as the severity of hypertension was increasing. This was noted by other authors also, like Kamath, Nischinta, Saxena et al. Maternal complications were noted to be higher in hypertensive pregnant women, especially with serum uric acid levels greater than 5 milligram per dl as compared to those with less than 5 milligram per dl. Now, what could be the reason for this hyperuricemia? As per the literature, the origin of hyperuricemia is multifactorial. It could be placental ischemia, it could be increased oxidative stress, or immune maladaptations, or it may be genetic. Some authors also state that in normotensive pregnant women, even in the first trimester, the uric acid levels should rather be decreased because of increased estrogen levels and increased renal perfusion. The uric acid clearance increases. But in hypertensive pregnant women, even in the first trimester, the uric acid has been found to be increased. The fetal complications are also related to serum uric acid levels. As we have noted in our study, like low Apgar score at 1 minute, prematurity, NICU admissions, low birth weight, etc. And similar findings have been noted by other authors like Kamath, Tejal, Habibunnisa, Kinjalam, etc. To conclude, serum uric acid measurement is probably one of the best markers and a useful surrogate for the diagnosis as well as a measure of severity of preeclampsia. The presence of hyperuricemia, especially higher than 5 milligram per dl levels, identifies a subpopulation of hypertensive pregnant women at increased risk of maternal and fetal complications, and timely intervention can probably reduce adverse events. Being cheap, highly accessible, easily available, and a non-invasive method, it deserves to be considered as a diagnostic and prognostic tool in risk stratification and management of PIH.
Thank you, Dr. Shivani. I request our chief guest once again, Professor Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, to present the IOG Dr. Satya Paul Award for Best Original Study to Shivani Agrawal. There were two co-authors, Dr. Sangeeta Nangia Ajmani, Consultant and Head Department of Ops and Gynae, Kasturba Hospital, Daraganj, and Dr. Pooja Rani Luthra, Senior Resident, Lady Hardinge Medical College, New Delhi. I now request Dr. Pooja Rani Luthra to receive the certificate from our chief guest on behalf of her co-author as well, Dr. Sangeeta Nangia Ajmani. Both the certificates of the co-authors being received by Dr. Pooja Rani Luthra. Thank you, and once again, congratulations. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Neha Barlia, granddaughter of Dr. Satya Paul, a dynamic and brilliant scholar. Dr. Neha Barlia did her schooling from APJ School, Sheikh Sarai. She has a bachelor's degree in economics from Stanford University and a master's and PhD in banking and finance from St. Gallen University, Switzerland. She has several reputed publications to her credit in disciplines like psychology, economics, and education, among others. Dr. Neha Barlia is a member of the management board of the APJ Satya and Swaran Group and is involved in planning and execution of infrastructure, processes, and high-impact projects that help prepare the corporate group for facing the challenges of the 21st century, as well as enhance the overall quality of the APJ institutions. Apart from her academic and business achievements, Dr. Neha Barlia is a nationally ranked show jumper and dressage horse rider and gifted sarod player. with a number of national and international awards to her credit. I now request Dr. Neha Barlia to say a few words about Professor Carolyn Westhoff, our esteemed chief guest of the day.
Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, Dr. J.B. Sharma, respected dignitaries, esteemed doctors, ladies and gentlemen. The oration lecture of today's function deals with family planning, which is the most cost-effective and powerful strategy to empower women and their lives. Unintended pregnancy poses significant health risks to women and their families. It is associated with high rates of domestic violence, delayed prenatal care, and low birth weight. An unintended pregnancy can have serious health consequences in women with chronic medical conditions. Certain diseases can be worsened by pregnancy or are associated with adverse outcomes. Moreover, medications used to treat many chronic conditions are potentially teratogenic. To shed more light, we are delighted to have Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, Sarah Billinghurst Solomon Professor of Reproductive Health, Columbia University Medical Center, and Editor-in-Chief of the journal Contraception, to deliver the oration, "A Pill in Time Saves 9." Dr. Westhoff received her medical degree from the University of Michigan in 1977 and her MSc in epidemiology in 1983 from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Dr. Westhoff has published over 200 scientific articles related to safety and effectiveness of contraception and abortion. She carried out clinical research and related policy work on all aspects of abortion care, from clinical trials of RU-486 to legal challenges to the Federal Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act of 2003. She is a principal investigator of the National Institutes of Health Contraceptive Clinical Trials Network, which evaluates novel contraceptives and currently focuses on women-controlled microbicides. Additionally, she studies the effects of obesity on contraceptive effectiveness and explores ways that health services change can help women more easily succeed with contraception. Dr. Westhoff serves as editor-in-chief of the journal Contraception, a monthly publication for the advancement of reproductive health. The journal, published by Elsevier, is the official journal of Society of Family Planning and the Association of Reproductive Health Professionals. She is a member of the National Academy of Medicine and is a senior medical advisor to the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. She has received the following honors and awards: the Obstetrics and Gynecology Roy Pitkin Award for Best Article 2011, the Association of Reproductive Health Professionals Alan F. Guttmacher Lectureship Honorary of 2013, the NYC Department of Health and Mental Hygiene Most Impactful Article of 2013. This was granted in 2015. The Alliance for Continuing Education in Health Professions Award for Outstanding Outcomes Assessment of 2016. With research interests that include epidemiological studies concerning reproductive health, contraceptive development, and evaluation, it is noteworthy to mention that in 2010, the Society of Family Planning recognized her accomplishments, honoring her with a Lifetime Achievement Award. May I now request Dr. Carolyn Westhoff to come to the podium and deliver her oration lecture for the much-awaited topic, "A Pill in Time Saves 9." Thank you.
So while we get the slides, I want to just tell you how pleased I am to be here Professor Sharma invited me a few months ago. I was delighted, but everything I have learned since I've been here makes me ever more honored to be part of this. In terms of the title, I am going to be talking a little bit about efficacy and safety of the pill, but I'm really going to focus on healthcare delivery. And what you just said was very apropos. How do we help women succeed with contraception? So that will be a focus. But I'm, in particular, really grateful to have met the Paul family. Oh. Can you hear me now? Oh, that's loud. Okay. To the Paul and Barlia family, who I've met for the first time. I think their leadership is inspiring in the area of education, and I think that they are so generous, and that turned out to be so personally wonderful that I'm delighted to get to know them and have this opportunity. So I am deeply honored. I also, to the people in the audience, want to extend my respect to you. You are researchers, authors. As an editor, I appreciate that you are reviewers. You are teachers for the next generation of healthcare providers and even teachers to the general public. But I think what's most relevant for the talk I'm going to give is that you take care of patients. And I think when it comes to contraception, we want all of our patients to succeed in their family planning desires. And I'll tell you a little bit about some new things. Of course, everybody's familiar with the chart of world population growth and the potential divergence of this to either go up unsustainably or to be managed through family planning, and it's a great challenge for all of us in every country. In the U.S., and I better keep my glasses on or I can't even see my own slides. In the U.S., since the advent of the pill, we've had a dramatic drop in our fertility rates. That's happened elsewhere. This chart goes all the way back 100 years. And at that time, fertility was coming down, and it particularly went down during the Great Depression and World War II. Like so many other countries, we had a great resurgence in fertility after that. But that all turned around when modern contraception became available. And India as well has had a dramatic change in women's total fertility rate over the last generation. In the United States, this is overwhelmingly due to family planning efforts. And our Centers for Disease Control, which is our national public health agency, put together a recognition of the top public health achievements of the 20th century, and they put family planning in the top 10, noting that modern contraception has been changing the total fertility rate worldwide. And of course, as we've talked about already today and yesterday, that modern contraception decreases both maternal and infant deaths. But modern contraception comes with a price, and we all know that the early high-dose pills in particular had serious risks associated with them. The book on the left there is called The Doctor's Case Against the Pill, and a very intelligent and important journalist named Barbara Seaman published this book when the pill first arrived, and I was privileged to know her. She wanted to really make sure that women were not being endangered by this new contraception, published a whole book with all the concerns about the earliest pills. That led to hearings in the United States Senate about pill safety, so this was really a dramatic event. These were the Nelson pill hearings, and Senator Gaylord Nelson might be best known, if at all, as the father of Earth Day, and he was very interested in the environment, but he also took this action on the pill. This led the United States FDA for the first time to require product labeling for the consumer, detailing risks that might be associated with new drugs. So the pill really led to another revolution in drug regulation and to inform the consumer. We have had repeated publicity as we learn more about the risks of cardiovascular events, particularly venous thrombosis. This cover goes back to the pill scares in the 1990s, and this was a cover from the Sunday London Times magazine showing this woman with one little pill on her tongue, the kiss of death. And I do think it's important to realize that getting the right science, creating and studying, looking for the very safest pills is an important thing we can do for women's health. But of course, for journalists, the sensational story is important for them. Balance is not always so important. And as I showed you yesterday, taking the pill is overwhelmingly safer than being pregnant and having a baby for women, and this is true at every age. Now, in order to get a measured view of the risks and help all clinicians around the world use the pill as safely as possible, the WHO now is on the 5th edition of the medical eligibility criteria, and that is a very clear guide for all of us that's evidence-based and compiled by a large group of experts so that we can choose the appropriate women for every contraceptive method. So this is one WHO approach. The CDC in the United States produces a parallel publication. The interesting thing there is, as important as WHO is, it's not necessarily viewed as an authority by American doctors. And so for the CDC to see these kinds of recommendations get the attention they deserved in the United States, they went about producing an American version of the medical eligibility criteria. There are a few differences because there are context-specific concerns, but it shows how much effort it requires, with something as serious and constructive and important as this document. It isn't automatically accepted everywhere, and the WHO doesn't have as much everyday importance for American physicians. So the CDC took the step of, in essence, replicating this to make sure that its recommendations would be more attended to in North America for our patients. Now, the medical eligibility criteria really focus on safety, but the WHO has additional guidance on family planning. This is just a detail of how they do the criteria, but we don't need to go over that. There's also the selected practice recommendations for contraceptive use. And this is once you've picked the method, once you've identified the correct patient where the method is suitable, how do you use it correctly? How do you help the patient succeed with her family planning goals? Again, the CDC in the United States has a parallel document, and there is a little more divergence in selected practice recommendations, but this is the guidance for all of us on how's the best way to provide these methods. And what I'm going to show you now is a current recommendation, and I'm going to go a little bit back to the history of that and what research has led us to the current recommendations. And what the practice recommendations say, highlighted here, is begin contraception at the time of the visit rather than waiting for the next menses. This is known as Quick Start. I did a very informal poll of some of you earlier this morning, and this is perhaps not the approach. I think waiting for menses may still be usual here in how you initiate hormonal contraceptive methods. So how did we get here? I don't know if this sounds different from your practice, but I think it might. And this is a fairly new recommendation from the most recent edition. Now, before the WHO and CDC started this work, we relied on other less authoritative sources. I pulled out a copy of Contraceptive Technology, which is a major textbook in the US. And this is from 1988, 89, when I had just taken over. There. It's a long time to sit still for a little one. But this is an edition from 30 years ago at the time I took over our family planning clinic. My photograph of a page in this old book is not very clear, so I'm just going to show you when I retyped it of what the recommendation was for initiating oral contraceptives. First choice, start your pack. First pack on the first day of your menstrual bleeding, or start your first pack on Sunday, or start your pack on the fifth day of menses. The last choice was start your first pack today if there's absolutely no chance you could be pregnant. So this was the advice we were sitting with, and this was actually the advice in much of the product labeling, which I'll show you in a minute. Now, this gave me a whole lot of questions as a much younger doctor at the time, and was like, well, what do you do about starting the second pack? What do you do if you're switching from another method? What about emergency contraception? The switching and the emergency contraception were less relevant 30 years ago because we didn't have emergency contraception except for some of us who were cutting up packs of birth control pills and giving women a high dose that way. We didn't have dedicated products. But what about immediately after pregnancy, just in terms of how to operationalize it? And then, of course, there are a host of other contraceptive methods as well where we need to think about when to initiate them. Do we always wait for the woman to have her next period? This is Columbia University where I work, and here's our family planning clinic. On some mornings, we have a line of patients coming out this building onto the sidewalk and going all the way around the block. And these are patients waiting to be seen. By the way, we've improved our clinic practices, so we don't have this quite so often. But this is particularly for the women who are coming in to have pregnancy tests. Because in this clinic, we would do all sorts of reproductive health assessment, provide all kinds of birth control, but this was also the entryway into our system for any woman who suspected she might be pregnant. She would get her pregnancy test, and then we would either refer her into prenatal care or refer her for an abortion in our system, depending on what she wanted to do. But coming and lining up for that pregnancy test was step one. We had a room inside. This is one of my medical assistants, Jocelyn, who would just do pregnancy tests all day, and I had a whole room of women waiting for their results. It was a great opportunity for all sorts of research because of the large volume of patients. What happened to me as a provider at that time is that I would take care of all sorts of patients, provide them with their birth control pills, tell them, just like the book said, that they were going to start their pills with their next period. And then I'd come in one morning and I'd see the same girl standing in the pregnancy test line. I'd say, didn't I just see you? Didn't I just give you the pills a month ago or 2 months ago? What happened? And what I repeatedly heard was, well, I never got my period, so I couldn't start the pill. You know what happened there, of course. And there were a few other variations on that theme. Sometimes women wouldn't have a period at all while they're on the pill, and we know there might be no withdrawal bleeding, right? So then she wouldn't start the next pack because she assumed she was already pregnant. Of course she wasn't, but she assumed she was pregnant, quit the pill and became pregnant. It turned out there was a lot of confusion. I was doing the best job I knew how to do in providing pills just to women who asked for them. However, they actually weren't able to start once they left my office. And this was very bothersome because I wanted to help them succeed with their family planning goals, and clearly I was not getting there. So what are the problems with initiating the pill at the time that's in the product label? One is that many women will avoid clinic visits during menses. I might add that requiring a pelvic exam, of course, is completely unnecessary, so it's okay if a woman is going to come to the clinic during her menses, but many women, of course, are shy and reluctant to even show up in the clinic for fear somebody will want to examine them. So the very time when we would be willing to start the pill according to the label is also the very time when the woman does not come to see us. Now, so when the patient comes to see us and she's day 21 or 15 or even day 8 of her cycle, what we tell her is start your pill at the next period, and that matches what the product label says. It matches what the textbooks used to say. And then, of course, we'll tell the patients if you're going to have sex, you should use condoms while you're waiting. Now, if this was a woman who was happy using condoms, she would not have been in to see us asking for the pill in the first place. The satisfied condom users are out there happily using their condoms. This is somebody where that wasn't working for her. For a number of methods, this can also require an additional visit. I know I've learned injections are not widely used here, but for a contraceptive injection, it means she would need to come back. For an implant, she'd need to come back. For the IUD, she would need to come back. And if the woman has work, it means taking more time off work, finding babysitters. It's an inconvenience in her life. As I said, women can get pregnant while they're waiting to start their pill. Also, their motivation can change because even though they want the pill, they leave the office and they go home and their sister says, haven't you heard it's going to make you fat? Haven't you heard about blood clots? And she loses her nerve because she thinks it's going to be dangerous for her. As much as I would like to think I give very clear explanations to my patient and take into account their health literacy level and so on, there's clearly confusion about the first cycle starting instructions. And women, it doesn't matter whether it's first day or Sunday or a 5th day, whatever mistake you can imagine somebody has made. And so the labels themselves are confusing, and there are just a few examples here. For one pill, it says, oh, you know, take it on the first Sunday. How many patients take it on Sunday after their period's already ended? Lots of them. For day 1 start, it goes on with a certain explanation. Other products like Depo, the first injection in 5 days, Lunella combination injection in 5 days, NuvaRing between day 1 and day 5. And for Evra, wait, and then you can either use a first day start or a Sunday start. Evra is the contraceptive patch. But so the labels all vary a little bit as well, and sometimes are a little vague. So why did we start out with these rules about initiating the method during menses anyhow? Well, back in 1960, when the pill was new, we had no way for an early diagnosis of pregnancy. It wasn't possible. And we actually had no information yet about possible teratogenicity of the pill. And this is in an era where we had just seen the disastrous effects of thalidomide, and we didn't actually yet know about the problems with diethylstilbestrol. But in terms of thalidomide, at least in the United States, we were very worried about potential teratogenic effects, and we did not want any risk of giving a woman who's already pregnant this medication, which had the potential, in our ignorance at the time, to harm that pregnancy. So it was being cautious in a very sensible way some 50 years ago. The other thing is that if a woman started the pill with her period, with the timing of the 21 days, if she started on day 5 and you add 21 days, you get her starting her next period on time. And there was certainly An idea that that would be desirable for the woman, less confusing for the woman. And if her period came at some weird, unexpected time, it might cause her to stop the pill. Excuse me. And then, of course, also going back to 1960, we did not have any emergency contraception. So if the woman had just had sex the day before she saw me, and I know many of us working here have done a wet mount and seen live sperm many times when our patients come in to see you, so you know they're having unprotected sex. But we didn't have emergency contraception. All of that led us 50 years ago to say you have to wait for your period to start the pill. It was even a contraindication in the labeling at that time. And that's where we started. The question is, does that make sense for us today, and does it serve our patients well? So, by 1990, Michael Bracken, who's an epidemiologist at Yale, published a systematic review, a meta-analysis actually, of all the studies in the literature at that point on congenital malformations, which was seriously a big concern in the States. 12 prospective studies, 6,000 women who were exposed to the pill during early pregnancy, over 80,000 unexposed pregnant women as controls, and there was no effect of pill exposure on congenital on major malformations. And two things people were very concerned about were limb reductions because of the thalidomide recent problems, and also congenital heart defects, which can be related to hormone exposure, but they were not associated with the pill. Based on this, the US FDA changed the labeling of the pill and pointed out there was no increased risk of birth defects in women who have used contraceptives prior to or early in pregnancy. And therefore, the new label just said for any patient who's missed 2 consecutive periods, you should rule out pregnancy before continuing the pill use. That is a much more liberal standard than to say, oh, you've got to wait till your period. We just didn't change our practice, but based on our data on teratogenicity, if a woman continues the pill for several packs during pregnancy, there's no harm to her or to the fetus. This gave me the nerve 25 years ago or so to think about what's happening to my poor patients standing in that pregnancy testing line and say, is there anything we can do to prevent this? So we started using an approach for patients who wanted it that we called Quick Start, where we would use a sensitive urine pregnancy test, which by that time was easily available, inexpensive in the clinic, and in fact available over the counter as well. We also had emergency contraception with levonorgestrel available, so we would use that if she'd been exposed to period, and we would initiate her hormonal contraceptive immediately. She would actually take the very first pill right there in the clinic while she was still in front of us. And we, of course, told her she would still need some backup for a week because the pill does not work instantly. And if she did not have a withdrawal bleed at the end of her pill pack, she would come back and have a repeat pregnancy test at that time. One of the benefits of taking the first pill in the clinic is the woman who has hidden worries that you have not elicited, not managed to discuss. That's the situation where she's ready to leave. You know, she has her hand on the doorknob and she turns around and says, oh, by the way, doctor, what about, I heard from my mother, I heard from on the magazine, this thing she's worried about. When you give her the first pill right then and there, she's much more likely to bring up what her worries are and give you a chance to address those. So this was, at the time, considered pretty scary in our clinic to do this thing because it was against the product label and against all guidance. But in the clinic I told you about, for any woman who was past day 7 of her cycle when she came in requesting the pill, we offered her the opportunity to start the same day or to wait. And we recruited, you can see this is a long time ago now, we recruited 250 women. And then all we wanted to know is if they continued on to the second pack or not. So we phoned them up 6 weeks later. 1/4 of the women chose to start at the same day, and many of the women said, "Oh, you can do that? I didn't know that," which was, in fact, novel at the time. The other 75% also surprised me because it turned out they didn't necessarily start their pill at their next period according to our usual instructions. They did all kinds of weird things. So that was a real learning experience for me because it showed that my explanations and instructions about going home and starting on Sunday or starting on the 5th day, nobody seemed to remember them by the time they got there. So they did all sorts of different things on their own, and that was a learning experience. For continuing to the second pack, women who started the same day, 88% of them made it to the second pack of pills, but only 74%. There were understandable, believable predictors of continuing. The older women were more likely to continue. Those who said they were very certain about using the pill on day 1. Those who would be very unhappy if they were pregnant. And perhaps surprisingly, those whose partner knew they were coming to get the pill. But even after adjusting for all of those things, the difference was very statistically significant in favor of starting the same day. Now, it could be, of course, that it's just the more motivated women who chose to start the same day, because this was not a randomized trial. So we did move on to do a randomized trial, but before I got a chance, one of my colleagues said, "Carolyn, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. You're going to completely mess up their bleeding pattern. And then they won't like it and they'll quit. And that would actually be a bad outcome." So we did also study initially about 100 women with bleeding diaries for 3 cycles, detailed bleeding diaries. Both group, they were randomized to either quick start or what we call conventional start. Both groups had, over the next 3 months, about 19 days of bleeding. The cycle day we enrolled them in the study that they started the pill had no effect on their bleeding pattern. I'll show you a picture. At the time, people thought smoking was a cause of breakthrough bleeding. We found no effect of smoking. Women who had never been pregnant did, however, have more days of bleeding than women who were parous. So that's interesting. Other studies have found that, and that's going to be a counseling issue for us because women who've not yet given birth will probably have a few extra days of bleeding when they start the pill, and compared to parous women, and that might be counseling. Also, not surprisingly, women who told us that they missed a few pills had 4 more days of bleeding during the study than women who didn't. Here's what the bleeding pattern looked like, and the dotted line is women who started during their period, and you can see that they are bleeding on the left axis, and this is just the percent of women who had bleeding on any day. But you see overall, everybody just had their next withdrawal bleed about like 26 days later, and almost everybody's bleeding at the same time, and there's a little bit in the first cycle of breakthrough bleeding and spotting during that first cycle, which in both groups, it's less in the second cycle and maybe a little less in the third cycle, down to 10 to 15%. So this is just the bleeding pattern you would expect. And even if she started the pill on day 25 of her cycle, it didn't make any difference. The pill was basically supporting her endometrium until she finished the pack. So then we moved, after I quieted the fears of my colleagues in the clinic who said, you know, terrible things will happen if you do this, we went on to a large randomized trial with 1,700 women in some clinics around the country in the U.S. for 6 months. What we found was slightly greater continuation, slightly fewer pregnancies, there were no harms, and the approach was highly acceptable. And so this was a good outcome, and the standard of care in our clinic became same-day initiation. The one thing we can worry about is that some of those women will be pregnant, and if they're pregnant, we still want to know about it. I mean, it's not going to cause teratogenicity, but we do want them to enter into care for that pregnancy in an expeditious manner. In the big study that I described, of course, we had some women who were already pregnant. All of them had their pregnancy diagnosed by 8 weeks of pregnancy, so there was no clinically important delay in the entry to care. In our clinic, we look for a negative pregnancy test on everybody. We do receive provide emergency contraception if she wants it, but we routinely start the same day we see her while she's in front of us. Now, what is a window pregnancy? This is a woman who misses her very next period because she's already pregnant. This happens for 2 reasons. Either she was already just a few days pregnant when we saw her, or she didn't use backup for that first week and became pregnant before the pill really started being effective. The frequency in a wide range of studies we've now done is about 1 to 2%. And that is an important part of patient counseling, that you've been having sex, in fact, and you could already be pregnant, but too soon for our pregnancy test to pick it up. So we need to make sure that they're aware of this, but in fact, we've never had any problem. The first few studies here looked at ring versus pill, looked at a small randomized study, looked at the bleeding, looked at giving the pill same day to get women through the next month till they started an injection, for instance. Looked at depot the same day, which I found very nerve-wracking. And in 864 women in the earliest studies, there were only 10 of those window pregnancies. All of those women were sexually active, they weren't in the first week. And would we withhold the method from 854 women because 10 of them were already pregnant? Those 10 did not come to harm. We have, in the years since then, along with other investigators in the United States, studied this approach not just with the pill, but also contraceptive patch and ring. We've studied it with the Depo-Provera injection, a combined injection, and with both copper and levonorgestrel IUDs. Acceptability is dramatically high. It's typically in the neighborhood of 95% of women who want to start the same day if given the chance. Bleeding patterns have proven to be completely okay throughout, and in the long run, pregnancies are reduced. So this is an acceptable method. The window pregnancies are rare. They should use backup for a week. There have been no adverse events. I think that we are, as doctors, very good at following rules. We write rules and we follow the rules. And a long time ago, we wrote some rules for the pill and other contraceptives that say you start with your next period. But our rules turn out not to be medically necessary, and I think they may not be patient-centered because most patients would like to start as soon as possible. The new edition of contraceptive technology, the book I showed you in the first place, 20 pages later, says the #1 approach is to start the same day. The selected practice recommendations from both CDC and World Health Organization say go ahead and start the same day. So that's something that is a service to our patients. The WHO and CDC are still a little more conservative than I would like, and last week in the US we had our national family planning meetings and had a panel on this topic with the people from the CDC who write the guidelines, thinking about how we can make the guidelines even more liberal than they are now. There are a couple little wrinkles to be aware of. In all of these studies, we use levonorgestrel emergency contraception and the pill on the same day. And almost everybody was at risk for pregnancy, and it worked very well. However, in these studies, we never used new emergency contraception with ulipristal acetate, which is known as ELA-1. Ulipristal acetate is a better emergency contraception. It is more effective. It works for longer. It also works for women with a higher body mass index. So it's a desirable emergency contraception. And it works in part by delaying ovulation for 5 days, past when it would have occurred. It's more expensive. It's less available, but it is effective. Now, the problem is it's a progesterone receptor antagonist. It blocks progesterone. If you use this kind of emergency contraception and also give a contraceptive with progesterone, they cancel each other out. So that is a big problem, and you cannot use this quick start approach if the woman is going to use ELA-1 as emergency contraception. This is kind of a new problem to figure out when to start contraceptives after ELA-1, and it appears that you have to wait at least 5 days after ELA. So that's a complete turnaround, and it was biologically plausible that if you mix an antiprogestin and a progestin, you won't get the effect you wanted from either of the drugs. But that is a caveat. After abortion, this has proved to be very important. Historically in the States, and I don't know what you do here, people were not starting contraception immediately on the same day as an abortion. Sometimes that was a logistical problem, a financial problem, and sometimes people felt that was too much. You were overwhelming the patient with information and services. There were all sorts of reasons not to do it, but we now have extensive studies showing you can start all contraceptive methods the same day immediately following a surgical abortion. And for medication abortion, you can actually start the same day with pills and implants. You can start the same day for depot, although the data shows it might interfere with effectiveness a little bit. And for IUDs, you need to wait till the follow-up visit when the uterus is empty. But again, I think a principle here is to avoid unnecessary return visits for the patient wherever possible. I think while time is short, I won't go into this in detail, but in our abortion clinic, we were in a position where we were finally able to offer all contraceptives the same day. We had to have them in stock. We had to have them available. Before they were all available, only 11% of women ultimately made that extra clinic visit to get an IUD or an implant. Once we had it available the same day for our abortion patients, 46% initiated an IUD or implant the same day as the abortion. What happened over the next year is the repeat pregnancy rate among the women dropped from 27% to 15%. The repeat abortion rate in the next year dropped from 17% to 10%. This is a very dramatic improvement in the outcome for the patient. And so it's a very patient-friendly thing to do. Just to summarize, this is a very acceptable approach. There are no medical harms. There are benefits, and for the longer-acting methods, the benefits are actually greatest. It's fine to use this approach after levonorgestrel emergency contraception, but probably not after using ELA-1. Having IUDs and implants immediately available after abortion is actually a game changer for women because women following an abortion are motivated to avoid a next pregnancy. If you can make the method available for them the very same day, it will change long-term outcomes for those women. Safety and effectiveness are our main jobs to worry about, and that's what we need to be responsible for. But I think being patient-centered is another important goal for quality of care. And this is just an example of how we can let go of some outdated rules about patient care and provide service that is equally effective and safe and is also more desirable for the patients. Thank you.
We express our gratitude to Professor Dr. Carolyn Westhoff for that very comprehensive and informative oration lecture. Here, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to mention the name of Mr. Vijay Barlia. He's the chairman of Swaran Group and APJ Satya Group. Mr. Barlia is one of the leading industrialists of the country who has transformed his business enterprise into one of India's first true multinationals with a significant global presence across the chemicals, plastics, and pharmaceuticals value chains. Known for his financial and strategic acumen, he has given an entrepreneurial edge and broad vision to the APJ Swaran Group and also brought a unique economic and financial vision to the education sector as General Secretary of APJ Education Society. Well, due to unavoidable circumstances, he has not been able to join us today. Thus, I would now request Madam Sushma Paul Barlia to present memento to Dr. Professor Carolyn Westhoff for her very comprehensive and wonderful oration lecture. Memento for our honorable chief guest. Madam will also present her with a book, Reflections in Time, which is a compilation of Dr. Satya Paul's most cherished quotes. And we would also present a shawl to her. Thank you once again. Well, the overall goal of the IOG Awards Committee has always been generating knowledge and evidence-based practices in the field of obs and gynae. Thus, the overall objective is encouraging collaborative research that expands knowledge and impacts practice. From this year onwards, ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to institute as many as 6 new awards, reflecting the heterogeneity of our objective with cross-divisional and institutional representation. For these new awards, an independent esteemed jury was constituted for selecting the awardees, and we are sure that these awards will inspire the younger generation of doctors to strive for excellence in their field of work. May I now request Mr. Nishan Barlia to kindly come on stage to felicitate the awardees. The first award being announced today is Excellence in Menopause Research, which is being awarded to Dr. Ratnabali Chakrabarti for her outstanding work and contribution in the field of menopause. The next award is Excellence in High-Risk Pregnancy Management Award. And this goes to Dr. Kamal Gujral for her outstanding work and contribution in the management of high-risk pregnancy. The award for the Excellence in Infertility Treatment goes to Dr. Jaideep Malhotra. She receives it for her outstanding work, research, and contribution in the management of infertility. The next award is for Excellence in Minimally Invasive Gynecology, and it goes to Dr. Alka Kripalani for her outstanding work, research, and contribution in the field of minimal invasive surgery. Next is the award for Distinguished Chair, and this award is to honor someone who has significantly impacted and enhanced patient care, demonstrated leadership in national and international organizations, led to the development of patient-centered educational programs which demonstrate excellence in education as well as development of clinical programs, has achieved national and international reputation for excellence in clinical areas, and provided mentorship and development of other clinicians. And this award for the Distinguished Chair goes to Dr. Pratap Kumar. And the last award is the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award. And this award has been instituted for recognizing an eminent personality who has demonstrated more than 20 years of service in the field of obs-gynae, made a long-lasting contribution to the field of obs-gynae and community-engaged research, exhibited leadership, and provided inspiration to others in the field, held positions of leadership such as editor-in-chief, membership of editorial boards, or chair of scientific organizations at national and international levels, contributed to Indian government policy, national and international academic and other public forums, robust clinical research and publications, and has also mentored hundreds of students. And this prestigious award goes to none other than Dr. R.P. Soonawala. A standing ovation for the celebrated doctor, Dr. R.P. Soonawala. Thank you. And now I would request Mrs. Sushma Paul Barlia and Mr. Nishant Barlia to felicitate Dr. J.B. Sharma for his excellent editorial services towards IOG Journal. Thank you and congratulations once again to everyone. And I now request Mr. Nishant Barlia to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you. Honorable Chief Guest of the Day, Professor Carolyn Westhoff, respected President Madam, Mrs. Sushma Barlia, Chief Editor, Dr. J.B. Sharma, highly respected members of the IOG Editorial Board, awardees, most distinguished doctors, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of the APJ Satya and Savran Group, the Indian Obstetrics and Gynecology Journal, and the Water Bushel Healthcare Foundation would like to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks to all of you for gracing us with your presence and making today's event a grand success. I would like to especially express sincere gratitude and a deep sense of appreciation to our chief guest, Dr. Carolyn Westhoff, for gracing the ceremony and delivering a truly extraordinary oration address. Madam, your presence, words, knowledge is of immense inspiration for us, and we are too delighted that we have had the opportunity to host you. In fact, Madam, from your presentation, in India, as you may be aware, we have a population of 1.25 billion, out of which 50% is below the age of 30. And so we very often talk about the demographic dividend or demographic disaster that we're headed for. So your presentation, and especially on patient centricity, was truly, I think, very insightful for many of us. Thank you once again for being with us here today and sharing your thoughts. I would also like to express a sincere gratitude to Mr. Vijay Balia and Mr. Sushma Balia for their constant support, guidance, and encouragement throughout in all our endeavors. I would also like to thank and acknowledge the extraordinary and tireless efforts of Dr. J.B. Sharma, members of the most eminent IOG editorial board, and the IOG Journal team for making the IOG Journal one of India's most widely circulated medical journals. I would like to once again congratulate all the awardees, many of them some of the most prestigious names, and we are so honored to have you with us here today, and thank them for sharing their insights through their wonderful presentations and by the august presence. Further, I'm most grateful to all esteemed doctors and other dignitaries and guests who have joined us from across the country and abroad to make this event memorable with their august presence. I would also like to thank all the hundreds of well-wishers who have joined us online across India yesterday and today and the globe for the live global webcast of today's event. Last but not least, a big sincere thank you for all the APJ family. I should add, not only have the privilege of working within the APJ family, I'm also a student and now a proud parent also. So it's something really I'm very, very proud about. For their incredible efforts, support, and coordination to make this event a grand success. With all of your efforts, this would not have been possible. So thank you once again. Thank you.
So on behalf of APJ Satya and Swaran Group, the IOG Journal, and Walter Bushnell Healthcare Foundation, we thank you all for gracing this occasion and making it very memorable for all of us. And now I would request all of you to kindly rise for the national anthem. Thank you all once again, and please join us for lunch now. Thank you.